In this video, we are going to practice using trigonometry to solve for missing side measurements in triangles. And some of the most common questions I get asked is, which trig function am I going to use? And will I be dividing or multiplying as I'm solving? And so I'm going to try to explain really clearly how you know the answer to those questions, since they are the most common thing that people struggle with. So the first thing you do when you get to a problem is you label your picture. Again, like I said in an earlier video, I always circle my reference angle that I'm going to use to solve the problem, and then I label the picture based on that angle. Across from it is the opposite side. That's always the one that I label first. Then I label the hypotenuse, which is always across from the right angle. And then the one that's left is the adjacent. Again, the adjacent touches the angle and helps create it. The hypotenuse also touches it and helps create it. But we can't call them both adjacent. And this one is a special name. It has its own name, hypotenuse there. So we've got opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse. As I'm working problems, I always put the rule on the paper. And I, think the saying in my head that some old horse caught another horse. Taking oats away is the one that I memorized, and it's so corny. But you can think of your own if you want to memorize your own to help you remember it. But this is going to help me to set up my equation. So, how I know which one to use? The number one question. You decide which one to use based on what you want to find and what you know already. In this problem, I'm going to start by finding A, so this is what I want, and this is what I have. So I'm using O opposite and A adjacent. The function that uses O and A is the tangent function. So that's how I decide which trig function to use for the problem. Then we set up the equation. This is a very shortened thing. It's not the whole thing. Where the T is where we should think tangent of the angle, and the angle is 57. You need to have your angle with your trig function. Then it says O over A. So we're going to put the ratio of the opposite, which is 14, over the adjacent. Then I like to put a 1 under the tangent 57 so that I can see it as cross multiplying to solve. You don't have to think of it that way. You can think, all right, I would multiply by A to get A off the bottom. However you think of solving this, go ahead and begin the solving process. I'm going to cross multiply, which will give me 14 equals A times tangent 57. Again, that's an A, not a 9. Then I pause, because students always ask me, do I multiply or do I divide? And here is how you know. You pause right now and you think to yourself, is letter A alone on one side of the equation? And here it is not. So we must continue solving for A until it's alone. So the next step, they're multiplying here, and remember, tangent of 57, we could put that in the calculator right now. It just gives you a number. I'm going to go ahead and put it in my calculator. You can't see my calculator right now, but if you type tangent 57 in the calculator, you get like 1.539864,964. So it is just a number. So we're going to divide by that number on each side. There we go. And we could copy and paste that number and use that number in our calculating, but I don't usually do any calculating until I'm at this point. So now we see that A is going to equal 14 divided by tangent 57. And now we're going to go to the calculator and type that in to get the answer. So I'm going to pull up the calculator for us. And the first thing, though, and it was in bold at the top of the paper, was to make sure that your calculator is in degree mode. Let me tell you, that's important. I started these notes and I forgot to check that. And at one point I got a negative answer and I thought, oh no, I forgot to check the mode. It will make all your answers wrong if you don't check it. So be sure that you do push the mode button, which is right next to the second button, and check that it says degree mode instead of radian mode. These are two types of angle measures, and we are going to be doing trigonometry using degree mode. Unfortunately, our calculator default setting is radian mode. And you know, we clear our calculators before we take a test. It's going to go to radian mode. Be sure and go into the calculator and set it to degree mode. So I'm going to quit out of there. You can see that at the top of the calculator screen up here, it says degree. And you can know that it is in degree mode. It's showing you. So always check right there that it says degree. So on our paper, we had 14 divided by tangent 57. So all you do is you put 14, you push divide, and then you push the tangent button. Here's the three trig functions we're going to use: sine, cosine, and tangent. They are right here next to this caret button. And so it was tangent 57 for what we're dividing by, so we put that on the bottom. You can close your parenthesis here, just saying, tangent 57. Honestly, it's not going to matter as long as we're not typing anything else if you didn't close it. And we're going to push enter. And we get a decimal answer. With trigonometry, you are going to get decimal answers for pretty much all of the answers. And you need to look for where it tells you to round. On our notes, they did not tell us where to round on number 7 and number 8. So since they didn't tell me, I'm going to go with 2 decimal places as kind of my go-to. So here the number is 9.09. So I'm going to round to, or it's 9.091, and I will round to 9.09. So let me, whoops, my writing device is having difficulties. 9.09 is the answer there. So I'm going to type it since it disconnected. A equals 9.09 for that problem. 2 decimal places. Oh good, it's connected again. All right, so that is how we find A. Now we're going to find B. And I'll try not to talk for so long this time. All right, so finding B. Again, how do we know which trig function we are using? It is based on what we want and what we have. We want the hypotenuse. We have the opposite. That's O and H. Find the trig function that uses O and H. That is the sine function. So we're going to use the sine function this time. So the sine, and anytime you put your trig function, you want to put the angle, which is 57, and then equals, and then we have opposite over hypotenuse for our setup. So that's going to be 14 over B. Put this over 1, cross multiply, B sine 57 equals 14. Pause. Is B alone? Why no, it's not alone. Continue solving. Divide. So B, oh, and we like to put this squiggly equals. I couldn't because I was typing on the previous one, but that means approximately. It means that you rounded. And we're going to go to the calculator. These are gone. We're going to type in 14 divided by sine 57. It's going to be a lot like what we just did, except for hitting tangent. We're going to hit sine, and we'll get a different answer. So 14 divided by the sine of 57. 16.69. So that's going to be the answer there. So that's B, and this was A. That one's done, and on to the next. So on number 8, we didn't do anything to it yet, so we've got to start by labeling. Find the angle you're using. It's right here, angle 47. Label your triangle based on that angle. Across from the 47 is the opposite side. Then we have across from the 90 is the hypotenuse. And then the other side that touches the angle here, it's the adjacent side for labeling that. Then think about what you want and what you have. I want X, I have this 12. This is adjacent and hypotenuse. Go over here to our trig functions. Which one uses adjacent and hypotenuse? Well, that would be the cosine function. So we're going to use the cosine function. So we're going to set up the cosine of our angle, which is 47, is equal to the adjacent over the hypotenuse. Put that over 1, cross multiply, and pause. So cross multiplying here, think to yourself, is x alone? Yes, it is alone. Do not go any further. This is ready to put in the calculator. So this problem we're going to multiply, but on the previous problem we divided. If you show the work, you'll get there and you don't have to memorize, when do I multiply, when do I divide? But if you like to memorize things, when the variable's on the bottom, you're going to divide the number above it by the trig function. When the variable is on top, you are just going to multiply. But once you do this enough, you will get the hang of when you're going to do multiplying and dividing. But like I said, just pause after the first step and think, is the letter alone or not? And if it's alone, you are done and you're ready to go to the calculator. So 12 times cosine 47. I always put the 12 first because otherwise I have to worry about the parenthesis thing with the trig function. So it was 12 times cosine 47. You can push the times button, but you don't even have to. So 12 cosine 47, just like it looked like on your paper, 8.18. So the answer is 8.18. So x is approximately 8.18. Now for finding y. You'll notice that I don't use x to find y unless I have to, because in case I messed up when I found x, I don't want to have used it to find y, and then I'll mess y up too. So I like to work them separately like that. So I am wanting to find y. I am going to use the hypotenuse that I was given at the beginning. This is O and H. O and H is the sine function. So I'm using the sine function again right here, which is sine 47 equals the opposite over the hypotenuse. Put this over 1, cross multiply to get your solving going. Pause. Is y alone? Yes, it is. So we're going to multiply 12 times sine 47. So get my calculator back out. 12 sine 47. There we are. 8.78. So 8.78 is your y. Believe it or not, a lot of people just don't round to the right place correctly, and they struggle with that, and you will lose points if you don't round correctly. So be sure that you're very careful there, and that you watch for where they want you to round to. Also watch for if they have units. Like these didn't have unit labels, but a lot of our word problems will especially. On the next one, these are just 2 more samples just like we were doing, so if you feel really good about it, you may not need to watch these, or you could pause and try them. That's probably the best thing, if you pause the video right now and try these 2 out and then come back and check them. So pause the video now to try 9 and 10. Okay, now that you've done 9 and 10, pretending that you paused, hopefully you tried them. Circling my reference angle, labeling my triangle. Across from the 50 is the opposite. Across from the 90 is the hypotenuse. And then the other one is adjacent. You can use O, A, and H. I usually put up because I don't want to think it's a 0. So then I'm going to put my trig saying here, some old horse caught another horse, taking oats away, so corny. Oh well. Here we go. So the one I want is here. The one I have is here. O and A. Tangent. Another way to think of this, which I kind of like, It only works, though, on this problem. We don't have the hypotenuse, so don't use anything that has an h in it. This is the only one that doesn't have an h in it, so that would be clearly the one you'd want to use. So that works kind of nicely, too. So we're going to use tangent function. Tangent of my reference angle 50 equals the opposite 13 over the adjacent x. Put that over 1, cross multiply. X tangent 50 equals 13. Pause. Is x alone? No, it's not. Continue by dividing. Now x is alone, so 13 divided by tangent 50, and we go to the calculator again. So 13 divided by tangent 50, enter 10.90829. In the instructions for this problem, it did say to the nearest tenth, so that would be 10.9. Always watch for that. I'd already done the problem, so I had checked that ahead of time. So we got 10.9, so x is 10.9 approximately. Should do that squiggly one. There we go. All right, number 10, last one on this page. Here's our reference angle again. Label the picture, opposite, hypotenuse, adjacent. If you don't label the triangle correctly, everything will be wrong. You won't be setting up your trig functions correctly, and it would just be really sad. So as I'm solving this, I'm gonna find t first. It doesn't matter the order you find them in, but I'm just gonna go with this one first, and this is what I have, and that's O and H. So I'm gonna use the sine function. Sine of 51 is the opposite over the hypotenuse. So it's set up. Now I'm going to cross multiply to solve. So 32 sine 51 equals t. And t is alone, yay! So we can just go to our calculator and do 32 sine 51. So 32 sine 51. We want the tens place. The tens place here would be 24.9 for t. So 24.9 is approximately t for that one. And then u, finding u here. So we want adjacent, we have hypotenuse, that's a and h, that is cosine. Cosine function that we're going to use. So cosine of 51, again our reference angle is always what goes there. Adjacent over hypotenuse, and that's a u. There we go. So 32 cosine 51 equals u. And then we go to the calculator with that. 32 cosine 51. 32 cosine 51. And that would be 20.1. 20.1. So u 20.1. And that is how we do basic trigonometry. The next video will show you how to use trigonometry to find angle measures, which we're going to use for our Sphero projects, and show you how to solve a right triangle. So you might need that for some of the bookwork, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to post that today as well in a different video.